My name's Al Hafner. I am a retired police officer, but I'm also the police department historian and fascinated by history, and was doing a in-depth research of the courthouse we're standing next to. And along the way, got interested in the cannon and doing the research on that because so many questions came up of how did it get here? Where did it come from? This cannon would have been considered what's called a field piece for the Army. It would have been mounted on a wooden carriage that had large wheels on it. The big wheels make it easier to transport across fields and dirt roads, hence the term field gun. Even though it weighs over 1,000 pounds, once it's mounted on the carriage, it can easily be moved by half a dozen men. The first article I found said it was captured at Bladensburg. It was probably rescued from the field, but not captured. To confirm that, we need to look back at the Battle of Bladensburg. That was a defeat of the American troops that opened the way for the British troops to move into Washington and set fire to the town. The company of troops that came from this part of what's now Howard County, we were Anne Arundel County then, they were part of the 32nd Regiment out of Annapolis. So all the troops that retreated into Washington. They followed the Bladensburg Road into DC, continued their retreat, and then as they realized that after Washington was burned, the British marched back to their ships and started up the Chesapeake Bay. The troops all headed towards Baltimore. From Rockville, they followed what is essentially today Route 108 up through Howard County to what's now Ellicott City. It was known as Ellicott Mills then. My theory about getting the cannon was it had been abandoned somewhere along the route of march. Sergeant John Dorsey and his company of troops from this area latched onto it to prevent it from falling into British hands. They kept it all the way up here to Ellicott Mills. Where it's sat since then, nobody knows. I have not found any records, letters, nothing to indicate where this was stored. There was no courthouse here yet. Construction on this building did not start until the end of 1840. But it was kept handy, and every time there was a holiday of some type, people would roll it out and fire it off as a great big firecracker. All of the cannons cast for the British Army and Navy had the Royal Crest on them. This is a GR with a small 2, which indicates it's George II. George II reigned in England from about 1730 to 1760 when he died. So this actually predates the War of 1812, predates the Revolution. We can date it back to the French and Indian War. It has a P that's engraved towards the rear of the gun. The P is a proof mark from Woolwich Armories, where they would do proof testing to make sure it functioned properly. The numbers below the P is a 12 and a 1 and a 0 with a dash between each. That's actually a mathematical formula to tell the gunners using this in the field how heavy was the gun in case it had to be lifted and moved to another carriage. On the right-hand trunnion, there's the H that's cast into the end of it. That indicates the Harrison Foundries southeast of London. That was a big iron foundry that delivered their last cannon in 1763 at the end of the French and Indian War. Most of the town at that time was centered down along the river, what we would now call Lower Main Street. I would speculate that it would be somewhere down there in that part of town, up until there was someplace else to put it. It didn't come up here until after the concrete base was built in 1913. It happened to coincide with the 100th anniversary of the War of 1812. That's the most likely reason.